order the Oswego Community Unit School District 308 Board of Education, servicing the communities of Aurora, Joliet, Montgomery, Oswego, Plainfield, and Yorkville. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baumann.
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Present.
Mr. McDowell.
Here.
Mr. O'Neill. Mrs. Paul.
Here.
Swanson. Here. Mr. Walsh.
Here. Pledge, please. Public comment 2.1. On behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our residents and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Residents interested in speaking to the board this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented to the secretary to the board. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name and address for public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and that no discussion of personnel matters, including names or specific job titles, or responses to questions are permitted. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. Follow-up to your questions or concerns will be addressed by the administration through the contact information you've provided on your comment card. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Jared Ploger to the podium, please.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jared Ploger. I live at 2776 La Jolla Court, Aurora, Illinois. As we gather steam to restore trust between our communities and our school system, I would like to bring to light 3 cases of those in our school system showing kids come first. When the district made the change to Aramark, those of us with children with allergies certainly knew we had to pay closer attention. However, what did more to show that kids were being put first were the emails I received from Principal Ryan Anderson, Nurse Randy Spinelli, and Mr. Mark Eric Kellian to ensure that my youngest son's dairy allergy and his health and safety were a priority. I don't think you can ever thank someone enough for showing you that your kid is safe and a priority. So I want to thank you to all those involved. It was great. In addition to this example, I'm happy to announce that the Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee, or BPAC, which holds at least 4 meetings each school year for our EL parents, will on Thursday, September 18th, hold a special community meeting for our EL parents, as was stated, would be done in this public setting on August 11th. It hopes to accomplish 3 things. 1, inform and educate on their child's particular EL program and service. 2, educate and inform parents as to their rights. And 3, open it up for questions and answers, Q&A. We anticipate a robust Q&A, by the way. This is a timely and proper event for EL parents as they start the new school year. Plus, it's what BPAC does best, understanding of programs and services and advocating for EL families. At the same time, this meeting will have general information for the non-EL public, in which topics such as how DL benefits all will be explained, as we feel that open communication will help in restoring trust. Assistant Director of Special Programs Teresa Ulrich will also be in attendance and showing her commitment to our kids. BPAC would like to extend this invitation to all of the board as well. This meeting is a demonstration by both BPAC and the administration in their shared desire to work together and build a bridge that hopefully will continue to restore trust. Dr. Wentz's efforts in meeting with one of the BPAC parents twice is also appreciated and again shows that commitment to our kids. Let's all do our best to encourage that dialogue will continue. Finally, this summer was the last of 3 years of seasons that I had the fortune to work with many of our now Oswego East freshmen, but at the time junior high student athletes from Bednarsik, Plank, and Murphy Junior Highs. One thing overlooked, which I think you should be aware of, is that the night crew here at Oswego East does an excellent job of showing kids they care through their actions and their flexibility to ensure the kids' needs were met. I want to thank you very much for your time and, of course, your service to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, can I ask one quick question? Did you say?
No, we can't have this.
Well, just want to know what time the meeting was.
Oh,
What time was that meeting? Did you say?
7 o'clock. Any other comments? That's it? Okay. Thank you. Comments from the board? I just want to say that we've kicked off the fall season of sports, and it's amazing each year that the support that we get from our community, not just from the parents of the athletes, but from parents whose students have left the district are still part of the booster clubs at both school. And we also see a lot of the community members that don't even have students in the high schools yet supporting our clubs, not just football, but volleyball and all of our sports. So I just want to thank the public for that. I'll just open it up to any other comments. Okay. We can move on to consent agenda. Pardon me? Oh, thank you. I already talked to you today, so I don't need to.
Have we talked today?
Once.
Well, Mr. Walsh, I want to remind the board that 2 weeks from tonight, what questions do you have around the budget? Because on 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to ask you to move forward with the budget. So we call it the budget meeting. I've been here long enough now to know that it can take 10 minutes, it can take longer. But we have posted, we've met all of the legal requirements needed, so I think 2 weeks from tonight we should be ready to move forward. I'll remind the board, and we will remind you over the next few weeks to be sure to mark your calendars that second Monday in October is Columbus Day. We are out of school that day. There is no school board meeting that evening. We'll be meeting on Tuesday, October 14, 7 o'clock here at the same location. That'll be considered that first meeting of the month, so it'll be business, it'll be policies, bills, personnel, etc. And then the second meeting in October, the 27th, back on the Monday, that is the meeting that at this point we've tentatively scheduled Dennis Cheeseborough and Teamworks that have worked with the staff and parents and citizens to bring us the strategic plan to the point we are today. So you'll be hearing a little bit more over the next few weeks. I'll ensure that you have the updated draft of that strategic plan, but let's plan to use that second board meeting in October to discuss strategic plan, specifically mission statement, vision, goals, objectives, and we'll also have a discussion about what you have read, and again, we'll get this to you in advance, but what you have read that the staff has accomplished that outlines not only the goals, but the plan to get there, the strategic piece that allows us annual growth in the areas that we have identified and hopefully have aligned with the board's goals. So I think that'll be a nice evening, and then all of a sudden we're into November, but before we go to November, I know that we may be looking at an opportunity, Mr. Walsh, for the board to come together to do some planning outside of the traditional board meeting whenever we're ready to discuss that piece as well.
As we did last year. Took a Saturday. So we'll send out a date or two and see if it makes sense.
We're going to try to get you together on a Saturday like we did last time and look at our goals. I know, if you recall, we did a ranking. Obviously, it's hard to spend. We'll still have 30, 35 important areas, but we really need to ensure that what we're working on is what the board desires, and then provide any updates at that time for you to rank and ensure that we are moving forward. I will say in this last minute that we are working diligently on the board-approved goals. The cabinet and I talked this morning about where we are with those that are pretty much due timeline-wise to the board between now and January, and we heard nothing other than we're on schedule, we're moving forward. We have a gifted and talented task force that's been assembled. Dr. Miner, they meet
12th
this
and
week?
13th, yes.
12th and 13th. This Wednesday, we have our first bullying and harassment committee meeting. Now that's important for two reasons. One is the policy that we will be looking at soon with regards to state requirements, and then the second caveat to that piece is If you recall that student survey that we implemented, we found that bullying harassment was potential an issue in our secondary schools. So we have 20, 22, 23 people that have been assembled. Their first meeting is Wednesday, and that will launch a research, a study internally as to what we're doing, what we're not doing, some comparisons with other districts. It's a national issue, so it's not just limited to 308 or Fox Valley area or Illinois. It's this issue of bullying and harassment is a national issue, but there are districts that have done well in identifying areas that work, depending on, we're talking about elementary, junior, senior high. So that committee will do work internally, and we'll give you some quarterly reports. But I think by the time the school year ends, we'll have some recommendations as to what we can do next school year to move forward. So a lot of great work, busy work too. And any questions or anything that's going on that I can't answer at this time?
Are there any parents on that committee? The
About
bullying?
18.
And did we send something out?
Yeah, it was sent out, and then people have sent in their interest, if you will. I put it in the Ask Dr. Went column a couple of times, and so we actually are running a little behind because of my absence this summer. So we wanted to get together, and in July we're running about 2 months behind. But we have a lot of eager folks and people with some great experience, and we'll provide that overview to the board in the next couple of weeks. Good people, experts in health, and I think we've got some fine people. And then there's some employees, but we are heavy on the external rather than the internal. We have a few programs in the district that are working in pockets, but we really need to look at this as a systemic issue.
I wanted to make some comments about the budget in 2 weeks. I still have some serious concerns about the budget, even though it seems like we chose the lowest option available to us, which was at the time the lowest option available to us. It still leaves, depending on how you calculate, $5 to $7, maybe $8 million of additional operating expenses this year over last year, which is probably 200-300% the rate of the current inflation. In my view, that's unsustainable. It can't keep going this way. This is the second year in a row that we are well beyond the rate of inflation with our spending, and I believe that we have to look at that more carefully. There's $5 million in new spending, not including the construction projects, which were really repair and maintenance projects, which has always been a operating expense, and it's now been money that's been borrowed, and you can accept that one way or the other, but it is an operating expense. It's been borrowed, but that's a category that we haven't addressed. There's going to be those expenses reoccurring every year, and we're not going to be able to borrow money every year to keep doing this. So I think we should start categorizing our expenses for what they really are, and that's operations. So we're at $7 or $8 million above where we were last year, and I don't think that's going to go over well with our constituency. It's going, if you combine it with the increase in the debt and interest payments that we have for the next 6 or 7 years, you're going to see a considerable property tax increase again next year. And I don't think that's going to be taken very well by our constituents, and rightfully so. So I will be offering an alternative in 2 weeks to the current budget that's on display. And I just want you to know, you can agree with it or you can disagree with it, but I will be offering an alternative because I think that we're spending way too much money in this district.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Went? Okay. Now we can go to consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 4.1 minutes from August 25th, 2014 regular board meeting open session.
Second.
Mr. Baumann?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill?
Aye.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Aye.
Mrs. Paul?
Aye.
Mrs. Swanson? Mr. Walsh?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Information only. 5.1, FOIA requests. Are there any questions for Dr. Wen on that? 5.2, financial statements as part of the regular documents that you receive. Are there any questions for Dr. O'Malley? 5.3, board policy first reading. Maureen's not here tonight. She was unavoidably detained. So I think we should move this to a future meeting to have any type of discussions, as she authored a significant portion of this. And I think while Laura does a great job, it's just Maureen drove that. So
Can I ask, did you guys see this in policy?
No, we did not.
So can we send it to policy committee? Because I'd like to have 6.18 or 6:185 in teaching and learning.
Several of these are going policy.
right.
They
That's
will
why we're
go-
not pushing them tonight, so we don't
Okay.
have to speak on them till they go through.
So can we push most of them to policy and take a couple to teaching and learning? And then be done with it? Do we have
Don't
to
see
push
a
them tonight,
problem.
or can we just?
Well, I don't think we can have a conversation with them because Maureen's not here, but they should go to policy and teaching and learning. Is there another one besides 6.185?
For teaching and learning? What? My big question on that one was remote educational program. Is that online learning? Is that the intent of that one?
Yes, it is.
I wanted to pull that one to teaching and learning, and I wanted.
It's my understanding that some of these are laws that are going to be going into effect, and they will be reviewed eventually by policy, but because of the fact that they're coming on legally, they need to be on our books because they don't exist,
Right,
or they need to be modified,
A lot of these need, but some of this is.
but they
Out of
will be
date.
reviewed because 6 has not been discussed at all. I mean, 6, we have, policy committee has looked at 6, but we are waiting for a lot of teaching and learning responses. And we have not, we will be starting 7 next month.
Okay. Great. We can move on to action items. 6.1.
I make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $3,931,822.91 as presented.
Second.
Can I make a point on the bills, as long as we're talking about budgets and bills?
Sure.
I noticed about a year ago we hired a purchasing agent. And so I decided this month I would go through the bills in fairly great detail to see what we're exactly paying for. There's at least 300 or 400 people turning in invoices for reimbursement. I thought that was going to be consolidated under a purchasing agent. To me, there's no discernible difference between what we do today and what we did prior to hiring this person. You couldn't tell it by looking at the list of bills. And I'm not sure. Maybe this person can provide the board with a body of their work. What exactly are they purchasing, and where are they getting this information from? Do the people in this district even know we have a purchasing agent that we should be requisitioning some of these materials from? It sure doesn't appear that way if you look at the list of bills. And then the only other comment I'm going to make about the bills is I notice an extremely heavy reliance on outside consultants, and I don't know. I'm sure a lot of that's justifiable. I mean, I know we have to have audits and other things like that, but we have just a tremendous amount of external consultants working for this district at extremely high prices, and I'm not sure if that's being bid out. The board has not see much of how those dealings are carried out, but I think if we're looking for places to save money, it certainly looks like an area ripe for investigation, because we're spending just millions and millions of dollars on outside consultants. Not sure.
Were you able to differentiate between the consultants that were paid for with state dollars versus federal?
I'm not sure how you could.
We've also
does the board have
missed
if the,
reimbursement.
I would suggest if that is a concern of the board, that during the retreat that the board make that known, because that's a totally and completely, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it tonight. I reserve the right to be opposed to it, but I'm not sure I've ever seen that laid out in the fashion or in the format. I'm not suggesting that we couldn't do it, but it would be unusual for a governing board district this size to lay that out. But if that's something that the board wants to see, we can pull that information. But I do know, and I think I would hope most know that the consultants that are being used are often through federal funds. There's very strict guidelines on our Title I and Title III funding, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I even know every single consultant that's being utilized. I can't off the top of my head, and I won't. But if that's something the school board would like, then I would want to know, because I don't want to mislead people that we're just spending a bunch of money on consultants for no reason.
I'm not suggesting
No,
that.
but it can be left, since we're live out here online, I get a lot of emails and calls the next day, that I just want to be able to differentiate how we're using consultants, with what dollars, because I think we went through this a few months ago with, the board saw bills, and we saw money being used or reimbursements, and it was actually no employees. It was organizations that were arms of the district, PTAs, booster clubs, etc. So if there's some format that will help the board understand more what is actually educational use of dollars versus other, we're all open to it. We just need to know what that might look like.
Well, I know we hired a purchasing manager, and I'm interested to know exactly how that's been working and whether or not it's been an effective use of our capital. Is this person actually saving the district the money that we thought that they were? I think that's a legitimate question to find
And we'd be more than happy to bring that forward once again. And I've stated this publicly before. The purchasing agent, who was intimately involved in the food service, for example, was able to save us on our P card with the rebates. So that issue alone brought well over not only that person's salary, but additional salaries that could really be aligned to people in our department. So the purchasing agent is doing very well and aligning many things in our office.
And I
we've
think,
been more than happy.
I don't want to jump the gun here, because I think Dr. O'Malley was waiting until later in the fall, but I received a report that the district actually had an insurance policy on some of the maintenance, on some of the equipment. And the board might recall that, was it last year that we had to address, we had a couple of air conditioning units go down, and we had that issue to deal with. And I believe we repaired those or replaced those this year. And no one in the district, because and I can sit here and say, well, why didn't they? Well, most of us are new within the last 2 years or 3. No one knew that there was an insurance policy that may have covered some of the expense. And I got a report on my desk that the individual position that we're referencing was able to do an extensive amount of work, talk the insurance company into revitalizing what we actually had as a policy, and found $45,000 just on one piece of equipment. And what we talked about this morning, and Dr. Malley, you can save this for later, and I want to burst your balloon on this because I know it's exciting. But I think there's going to be several $100,000 that's found. And that may be, Mr. O'Neill, what you're referencing. And if somebody that's in an office that is finding those types of savings and doing that type of work for us, what I hear you saying, if I'm not mistaken, is that we'd like to know that so that there can be some form of rationale or justification or follow-up to that position that we had.
Well, that's true, although it begs the question of who's buying the insurance. It doesn't know what it covers, but that's another question.
I've learned a lot.
If we have people paying for insurance policies and they don't know what they cover, and your purchasing agent is the one that has to uncover
I wouldn't want to take.
I'm not sure that's a chance. That's time to jump up and declare victory.
That's a good point, because that policy was purchased many, many years ago prior to me even being here,
Yeah,
for $1,900.
Whoever is in charge of buying insurance should know what's covered under our policies at any given time, whether they were here 5 years ago, last year, or just last month. We need to have somebody that knows, or why pay for the policy?
And you're right, and I'm glad to say that the $45,000 is going to be allocated toward, I think Bill Walsh has brought this up, having a maintenance fund that this board, I think Brent's been talking about since I've been here, having money allocated to it in a maintenance fund. So the $1,900 investment resulted in $45,000 that we can now start a fund that's going to be what the board had actually come forth as an expectation for this administration. So yes, you're correct, but at the same time, we're moving forward with some things that are really good. And to answer your question, to come full circle, the purchasing agent has been a wonderful asset to our team, and thank you, the Finance and Operations Advisory Committee, for putting forth that investment for this administration.
I'm glad to hear it, and I think the board would like to know. They are the ones that approved it. We were given a lot of examples of how this person would save us money, and I think we would like to see that that's actually the case.
Yeah, we'll give you even more.
I'm happy to do
Good.
that.
All
Just
right.
keep giving it to you.
But the reason I keep bringing these things up is because the huge increase in spending, at some point, we're all going to have to get on board and look for ways to run this place more efficiently, because that is unsustainable. I don't care who's sitting in this room. Everybody knows that. You cannot spend at 3 times the rate of inflation, especially in this district, and think that that's going to carry on for very long.
Mm-hmm.
We'll all be replaced. There won't be one of us sitting in this room 2 years from now, if that's the case. I guarantee it.
Thank you.
A roll call. Can we have a roll call then?
Mr. Lightfoot,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
Aye.
Mrs. Paul,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill,
Aye.
Mr. Baumann,
Aye.
Mrs. Swanson,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. 6.2, please.
I make a motion to approve the revised Board Advisory Committee bylaws.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions on this? Can I have a roll call then?
Mr. McDowell,
Hold on. Is there I was looking, is there a recommended committee level number, or it's up to each committee to decide on that?
I think there was not less than 12. I think we looked.
12 and left of the chairs.
Right.
second roll call. Top.
Okay.
Second bullet point. Any other questions? Okay, can I have a roll call?
Mr. McDowell,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill, Mrs. Paul,
Aye.
Mrs. Swanson, Mr. Baumann,
Aye.
Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Walsh.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. 6.3, please.
I make a motion to approve SD 308 Community Question and Answer Session Board Meeting Guidelines.
Second.
Are there any questions?
Yes, as I talked to you about the other day,
Yep.
Mr. Walsh, I still don't like this option. What I have an issue with is 2 things. While I understand the desire to involve the board secretary in submitting of cards, reading of cards, and calling of names, my concern is that it could slow the process down versus having people lined up at the mic ready to go. And the second issue I had was that obviously we would have a situation where members of the public may or may not wish to address a question to a certain individual board member, but we should give opportunity for multiple board members to respond if they want to. My concern would be that if every board member wants to respond to a question, that would be a total of 14 minutes. If each board member is given 2 minutes, plus the question takes 2 minutes to deliver, that's 14 minutes on one question, and I think our goal in the evening should be to get through as many questions as possible. So my suggestion to you, and I'm bringing it up again tonight, is I think that we should limit board responses to 2 or 3 members unless a board member specifically objects and wishes to speak on an issue, in which case the chair can then choose to grant or not grant that extension.
My comment on because we did talk about this quite a bit, is just having someone called up like we do now, I think is pretty efficient. I was just concerned that, and we had this when we had people lined up during the boundary discussions, that it's hard for other people to see or hear, where we could have whoever has a comment card that hands in, they could sit right up in front next to the microphone or right by the microphone. I wasn't overly concerned that would be that long, and it would be very orderly as to, people are standing there with their papers and their questions and moving around, and other people in the audience. That's where I was thinking. If everybody's sitting and, Karen or someone calls a person up, they come up, and we shouldn't lose that much time. And on the second point, my concern was I just didn't want to limit the opportunity for the board members, any board member, to have an opportunity to respond to an issue or comment. But, if we have someone ask you a question, and if we say 2 more board members can do that, then someone else may want to be the 3rd board member to make comments on that. Then, what you said tonight is the chair would be able to grant that person the opportunity, which I would, because I wouldn't want to silence any board member to comment to the public on their issue. So I'm not saying that every single time we have to have 7 answers. Someone may not have an opinion or want to share an opinion, but I just wanted to keep it so that everybody had an opportunity. So that's what was my thinking. So we can modify it whichever way makes sense, leave it as is. It's our first time. Might be a little, we might stumble a little bit through the process, but, I think it's a great thing that our board is doing this. So I just open up. Those are my thoughts.
I don't mind trying it that way once. What I hope that we do is that we have these more frequently, and if this is awkward for any reason, it's at the end of the world.
No.
We do it differently. So I want to try it this way too. But I would like to see us do this 2-3 times a year and give people the opportunity. It's a little bit intimidating for people coming in. I would like a more informal way to meet people who want to discuss issues with us.
Yeah.
I have a question. So I was trying to figure out if they asked a series of questions and then we responded, or if it was you can ask a question, I'll respond, or and then that might trigger another question that you have. Would we, you know what I mean? Or we just, they're listing questions and...
As I had drafted the original ideas when I was putting the thoughts together, it's literally the person comes to the microphone, they get 2 minutes to ask whatever they want. And if they don't use the 2 minutes, they don't use the 2 minutes. There's not readdress or anything like that. We move on to the next question. Now, somebody else that's there that wants to ask a follow-up, of course they can.
Well, unless there's more than 3 people on the same topic, right?
Right.
Well, we can, right. I mean, and that piece is not to limit topics, but to give other people a chance just to talk about another topic.
Right. Well,
and then we circle back if there's no other topics.
So is it a conversation with someone, or is it you can ask me whatever you want for 2 minutes and I'll give you my version of the truth as I see it for 2 minutes?
I think it's more second.
I'm just... All right, well, we'll give it a whirl.
No, I didn't know.
I'm just, anticipation.
If we go by way of the comment cards, do they all have to be turned in by the start of the town hall, or are they just going to be, can they come up to the microphone, hand a card throughout the...
Well, I think they need to be handed in. They can be handed in during the meeting, but I think Karen would keep it as, if you're there and you're the first one to hand in a card, you're going to be called first. If you're 37 and you came in 20 minutes afterwards and there's 36 ahead of you, you're at number 37, and maybe we get to you, maybe we don't. I mean, that's the only fair way I was thinking about it. But.
I'm going to ask one more time. Don't you think we would get more questions answered if we did kind of you're at this table and I'm at that table and you're at this table and you can kind of go wherever you want to go and ask questions?
and this is for the board to decide, but it really depends on what your objective is. If your objective is to have the public hear from individual board members, your plan works great. But if the plan is for the public to hear a response from the Board of Education, that's a totally different concept, because you have every right to speak as an individual person in that framework, like we all know we do probably throughout the week, but you can't speak for the board. And then, of course, you get into what the board has deliberated on and what the board has not deliberated on. So if there's a question about where do you think the all-day kindergarten program, what do you think about it? Well, it can be an opinion, but the board has not deliberated about that particular board-approved priority yet. So I would only caution the board, or encourage the board is a better word, that whatever framework you use, it is to meet your objective. Is this from the board to the public? Or, and again, I've seen both work, Ms. Swanson, where individual board members are stationed in 2s or 3s, and you do it that way. Depends on your goal.
My concern with doing it that way would be that you're going to get one person who goes from board member to board asking the same question, or you will only have to, if we do it more in the open session like we're talking about, is that somebody asks a question and it gets responded to, and you don't have to answer the same question over and over and over.
Or that the whole public then hears how you're thinking about this issue. And I think, Dr. Wendt, the correction on your statement would be that when the public's asking you questions, they're asking you, and it's your opinion, it's not the board's opinion. It's just your opinion on this topic, but the whole public gets to hear that opinion. So if you like full-day kindergarten or you don't, or when it comes up, I think it's important. Then it's more just, this is Bill talking to the public saying, these are my thoughts on X topic, versus the board, any one of us making a statement for the board or on behalf of the board. That's where my concern is, if we're spread out, the entire public, and it's going to be streamed, won't be able to hear your position on X because that person was at another table and couldn't get to your table in time. That's why I thought at least the first time we would do it as a board and see how it goes. And then we're all going to stay around anyway, so if people come up for follow-ups, that might work as well.
Mr. O'Neill may be right. Just try it out, and what you don't like, tweak it and fix it for the next time.
Yeah. I'm willing to try it. See
what happens.
And I agree with you. We should have it more. Maybe schedule when we only have one board meeting in that month, because there's so many committees and board meetings. Okay. Then you can have a roll call.
Mr. Baumann?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Aye.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Aye.
Mrs. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill?
Aye.
Mrs. Swanson? Mr. Walsh?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
I apologize, but I forgot when we were on the revised advisory committee bylaws.
Yes.
I was going to bring up the idea of trying to get the board to approve the legislative judicial committee, at least the concept of it, and then Dr. O'Malley and I can work out some of the details and bring them back. I forgot to do it. Is it okay if I do it now?
Yeah, I think you can work out some of the details, and we can present it at the next meeting, because we talked about it.
The authorization to go ahead and form a committee, and then we can bring back the details. I think we're talking about maybe meeting 4 times or 6 times a year, maybe, and we'll probably plan an annual trip down to Springfield for the spring legislative session, I would think. And there's some other things that we would like to finalize before we bring it to you, but we would like to at least have the committee.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Do we have to vote on that? Do we have to make a motion?
No, I think in the bylaws we can just, the chair can just form the committee. So consider it formed, and we'll just have to figure out.
Go ahead and
start it and
for it and getting some people.
Right, we have to get a second person who would want to chair that with you.
Okay.
Don't we have to amend the policy that says what committees we have? Because judiciary is not in there.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that now or at the next meeting.
I'd like to do it sooner than later, just so that we've been kind of talking about it, and
Yeah.
There's another issue that, is important to the district
Yeah.
that I think that you want us on, and that's the $49 million funding. That's going to be one of our first agenda items, is that we're
Oh, yeah.
going to start writing letters and contacting our congressmen to find out where we're at with that and try to put some pressure to get that moving, because we're next in line for that
Right.
capital money. So that's important, and I think we have a lot of work to do before we get to that point. So we need to start getting moving.
I think we need to start moving, and then if we have to vote on, we'll vote on it in the next session, only because since it's not posted as a vote, we can't vote on it. So, but we can have it on there and consider a meeting, a committee
Can you get it
started.
on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah. We'll have it on for the vote. Okay. 6.4.
I make a motion to reject the bid received for Mid-America Pool renovations as stated, and to rebid the Oswego Swimming Pool refinishing project.
Second.
Any questions?
Why?
Well,
Why?
so
Mike
the
is here.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in. I'm not going to steal his thunder. So
You wore a tie today.
go ahead.
Fantastic. Why? Are
Why rebid?
Yes.
Because we have one bidder. No competition.
But that one bid was almost half of the budget.
True.
So that's a good bidder.
It is an educated guess. And it gets tested when we have multiple bidders.
Won't we look kind of bad though if the bids all come in much higher and we have to take somebody for?
That's a risk we can take.
Mm-hmm. And why? I mean, given the fact that the world's not necessarily on fire with construction, why aren't bidders turning in bids for these jobs?
We actually had 5 plan holders for this job. 2 of them were actually too busy this summer to put a bid together. One of them was from out of state, and the project wasn't big enough for him to come all this way. We had obviously one bidder, and one was a mechanical contractor that was looking at the UV light system. So he wasn't actually going to bid the pool, but the work for the UV light to a pool contractor.
And that's an alternate, right?
Yes.
How did we arrive at the budget figure?
Working with contractors and engineers based on their past experiences.
Yeah, I'm concerned because the last time we bid the high schools, we came up with a budget figure, and then we claimed it was savings when we got better prices, and I'm not sure that's how I view it. But, again, when you have alternates, it always looks funny to me when we have alternates and our budget numbers sky high, and then the board will be told, well, look, we had all this money in the budget, and it came in half, so now we can do all the alternates. So I'm not sure I like that way of doing business. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, we had to form the budget when we went out for. This is maintenance, or is this under the capital budgets? Maintenance. Okay. So we did the capital work on the high schools. That was a pretty well-educated budgetary number at the time based on the architects. Then we went back and drilled down into that to get those costs lower than budget. So it wasn't just a pie in the sky number on that piece.
Would you write a note just so not that or something?
So
Is
Okay.
the goal, would there, as part of this, a goal to reduce that alternate 2 number? Or wasn't that the optimal choice, was to go
That
with
is
the full ceramic tile?
Is the choice for sure to get the tile. So, and that's another reason why we bid it. And get a little more competition, maybe bring that tile number down. That's my recommendation.
Okay. Any other questions? Can we have a roll call on the vote, please?
Mrs. Swanson?
Aye.
Mrs. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Bauman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Aye.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill? Mr. Walsh?
Aye, motion carries 6-1. If there's a need to go into closed session, we'll make this motion. Does the board have a reason to go into, is there someone here that has a reason to go into closed session? Okay, then we don't have to go into closed session. Can I have a-
I make a motion to approve the personnel report.
Second.
can I have a roll call?
Mr. Baumann?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Aye.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Aye.
Mrs. Paul?
Aye.
Mrs. Swanson? Aye. Mr. O'Neill? Mr. Walsh?
Aye, motion carries 7-0.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion,
Love
meeting is adjourned. Thank you for the public for attending.